Hey Landovan, today's topic is real talk about guilt and how we feel guilty all the time and really how to stop it so that we can feel better about how things are going. I have been a single mom for 6 years now. I became a single mom when the girls were about 4 or 5 months. And with the territory of being separated and then being divorced and then having the guilt around what you want to give your kids, there's been a lot of guilt. A lot of guilt of I wasn't the greatest perfect wife, I'm not the perfect daughter, I'm not the best mom, all of it. There has been so much guilt that has been overlaid on top of each other as I was going through a fairly hard time in my life, that I eventually took a step back and figured out how not to feel guilty and how to make it work for me. So welcome to the Land of And. This channel is all about authentic connections, practical tools, and real stories. And today's video is all about the real story of guilt and how to move past it, because it can be done and we can get to a better place with it where we make a little bit of peace with it. So let me share with you how this all unfolded for me. About 5 or 6 years ago, my husband and I were out to dinner. It was the first time since my girls were born, since my twins were born. And I sat down and I asked them a simple question. I said, "Are you happy?" Keep in mind, we had just moved down from Boston to New Jersey. We had 2 newborns and a almost 3-year-old. We just bought a house. And so this conversation was the first time that we had a chance to actually talk about all the different things. And there's been things going on leading up to that where it didn't feel right. Something was really, really off. And so when we were at dinner, I said, "Are you happy?" And I really thought that he was gonna say yes, and we are transitioning and this is exactly what I want. But his answer wasn't that. His answer was, "No, not really." And I thought, okay. I'm like, then what are we doing? Why are we doing this if neither one of us are happy? So we took that weekend. He went up north. I stayed in the area and we took the weekend to ourselves. We were apart that weekend. Came back on that Sunday and we said, "What do you think?" And we decided that this marriage wasn't working. And so shortly thereafter, we got a mediator on Valentine's Day, ironed out all the details of our separation. So we figured out child support, assets, all the things to separate. About 2 or 3 weeks later, he moved back to Boston, moved to Florida. I decided that if we weren't going to be in our marital home the way that we intended, that I didn't want to stay in New Jersey. I wanted a fresh start and move. And so I chose to move to Florida with 3 kids on my own, and I was just ready to have life work differently. In that time of becoming a single mom, I really had a lot of guilt for the kids, a lot of mom guilt there, a lot of guilt for the families, because divorce doesn't just affect the two and the people in the marriage, it also affects the family around. And so I felt guilt there. I felt guilt all over for a lot of things. And it took me, I would say, the past few years to figure out how not to feel guilty and how to really put my priorities in order where I feel good and comfortable about what it is that I'm doing. What I came up with is the number one priority at any given time is my personal self-care. That's it. That's number one. I mean, that's not it. There are other ones. There's 6 altogether, but that's always the first one. Because if mama ain't doing well, nobody doing well. And that's especially true when you are a single parent. Self-care is defined as putting my needs above somebody else's wants. That's the definition for me, and that's really the definition of self-care. And I'll say it again because it's worth repeating. Self-care is putting my needs over other people's wants. So if somebody wants me to do something, but I need to rest or I need to do something for myself, that's what takes priority, not what somebody else wants me to do. And that took me a long time to figure out, because we are usually really good about being polite, about saying yes, about accommodating others, and at the sake of ourselves. And so it's a bit of a shift to be like, okay, I can take care of myself as the priority, and that's okay, and that's healthy, and that's what needs to happen. Because a lot of times we think in order to be super mom, super woman, that we have to put everybody before ourselves. And that's just not true, and it's not sustainable. And I learned the hard way that it's not sustainable. I tried putting my kids first 100% of the time. I was just run down. I was exhausted all the time. And it wasn't until I took a step back and said, okay, in order for this system and this little family to work, me and 3 kids under 3, I need to take care of myself. And so the kids were little. I was like, I remember there was so much pressure of doing all the right things at all the right developmental ages. Like, oh, you have to do hours of tummy time. You have to do hours of this. And if you don't do this, you're a bad mom. And if you don't do that, you're a bad mom. And if you don't, like, make dinner every day from scratch with organic vegetables, you are a bad mom. And I was like, trying to be a good mom, right? And do all the right things at the right time. And then I said, not working. I am not getting any sleep. I am not even present half the time because I'm trying to chase all these things of what I'm supposed to be doing as a good mom. Somewhere between when the girls were 2, 3, 4, I let that go. It doesn't work without somebody at the helm. And it doesn't work if the person at the helm is not making the best decisions. Because if you're defining that you're going to take care of everybody else, then who takes care of you? I am just as important in the family as my kids are. And so I want to also model how to take care of myself to my kids. Because if it's always all about them, they're going to think it's always all about them. And they're not going to understand when I say, oh, I need some time to just be by myself and kind of gather myself. When they get older, they're going to be like, why do you need that? Because I'm a human. I had different things that were stuck in my head that I needed to work out. And at that time, because of the separation and the divorce, there's a lot of stuff. My emotions about loss of family structure, loss of dreams, loss of future, all of those things that we don't even know that we associate with them so deeply. And it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of effort because you have these mental blocks. It's really the priority to make it all come together is for me to be healthy mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, all of it. All of the different aspects of self-care is super important. The second one on the priority list is the kids' health. So making sure that those were the big pieces that I took care of. They went to their doctor's appointments when they reached the different age milestones, 6 months, 1 year, the different checkups. Those were another priority. And then the third one is the environment that I'm in, a safe and clean environment. Because if it's not safe, that doesn't work. And if it's not clean, then there's gonna be more problems with bugs. And it's Florida, so there's a lot of bugs. Fourth on the list is learning. For me, it was figuring out what was coming up next for the kids developmentally. I had to keep up in learning and how to parent that age. So I was always trying to think ahead of what else do I need to learn about what is coming up. They were my second and third kids, twins, but it's different having twins, twin girls, versus having a boy, and a different amount of fear to it. I'm just doing the wrong thing, and oh my God, so I had to put, and that goes back to my self-care of, I had to put the fears sort of to the side. I said, yes, I am afraid of doing the wrong thing as a mom, but I'm gonna plan and prepare as best as I can and then let that go, because I can't control that. Outside of doing literally the best that I can, what else can I do? The first one was personal self-care, second one was family care, the third one was clean, safe environment Fourth one was learning. Am I learning so that I can sort of get ahead of what's going to be coming up? The fifth one is social interaction. And then the last one is relaxation and downtime. Those are my 6 things that are in the priority order. And so what I do with these is I think about the request. Any given day, any given week, somebody asks something of me. They say, Joanne, can you do this? And I think about it for that day. Am I in a mental state that I can actually do this and do it well? And so a lot of times you get family requests of, oh, we want to do this. Maybe they call the day before or a few hours before. And I think about my list of priorities. I look at what their request is, and it's usually social interaction or relaxing, right? Those two, that's both 5 and 6 respectively. And I say, can I do that? Is my 1 through 4 at a place where I can do the other 2? Because if it doesn't match, if I'm like, oh, today I really just need some time to do some self-care, and that is more of a priority than spending time with family, then that's what I choose to do. And what I take out of the equation is the guilt. If I can see that these are my 6 things in that order, and I am not in a place where I can do 5 or 6 because I need 1, 2, or 3 or 4, like these are the things that need to be done that day, I let that person know, and I do not feel guilt. That's some real talk there, because it took me such a long time to get to that point. It is always coming back to sort of when you go on an airplane, put your mask on before you put your kids' masks on. And so I really made it a point to prioritize in this order. And I said, if I am doing something for myself that is healthy, there is no guilt associated with that. It took me years to really understand the whole guilt thing, because the guilt is really an expectation of what you are supposed to do. And when I thought more about that, about why do I feel guilty about this, it's because somewhere someone said this is the way it should be. Nobody asked me. Nobody asked if that was the way I wanted to do it. No one asked me if that was what I'm going to sign up for. And so if I'm not okay with what the expectation is, I'm changing the expectation. It's not okay to feel down and guilty because of some expectation that is out there. And I think as women, we try really hard to please a lot of people, to please those that are close to us, whether it be family, friends, or whomever. What is the expectation? Is it reasonable? Do you agree with it? Do you even like it? Because if you don't like it, then figure out what works better for you. 6 years ago to now is I figured out what is really my expectation of my life. What is really the priorities that I want to make a priority, that I need to make a priority. And I feel like some people are like, oh, well, you can't make yourself a priority. That's selfish. How can you always put yourself first? Because the opposite of that is me putting you first, and then nobody puts me first. If I'm going to put you first, and then you're going to put you first, who's going to put me first? Nobody. Nobody's going to put me first. And so that took me some time to realize that even if I put the kids first all the time, what gets shortchanged is a better version of me. When you have guilt, you have blame and shame right there alongside it. Because if you're not going to the expectation, it starts with you feel guilty. And then you can get into a headspace of you feel shame because you didn't meet the expectation. And then you start blaming yourself for not meeting the expectation, and then even feeling bad. And it goes into this vicious cycle. So this is the practical tools for stop feeling guilty. Look at the 6 items in the priority list. You gotta think deep and hard about what it is that works for you, what doesn't work for you, and understand why. Resonated with me is a Red Table Talk that I saw with, it was Gabrielle Union, Jada Pinkett Smith. And I love Red Table Talk. I love the vibe of how real it is. Ask Gabrielle, name 3 things that make you happy. And she couldn't name 3 things. She didn't know herself well enough to really make that happen. And so that's part of the personal self-care category of you need to know what makes you happy. You need to figure out yourself enough. And that's part of not trying to be whoever somebody else wants you to be, not trying to be what society wants you to be, but really being yourself and true to yourself and figure out what makes you happy, what makes you you, and go with that. Let go of the guilt when you are taking care of yourself and when you are moving forward, being courageous and taking bold steps that are not easy. And I know they're not easy. And that's the vibe that I want to bring on this Land of Van channel. I'm going to share authentic connections, practical tools, and real stories in that way. And that's kind of what I'm going for. That's what the Land of Van is. The Land of Van is figuring out who you are and then being true to that and doing it all. It's not picking. It's not one or the other. All right, Land of Van, don't forget to subscribe for more content, and please comment. Tell me what you're thinking, and let's have some real conversations, real talks, and move forward to live a life that we love.